Hi.
We are.
Nice. It's definitely a hot seat for sure. So I have started a new process myself these last couple days. And
Did it feel that you were under the influence
yes.
when it came?
Yes.
Then it's a good one.
Yeah. So I just want to touch on that for 5 seconds
Yeah.
before I go into my question. But
Yeah.
I just started thinking about my day as kind of like a song. And how do I want my song to start? And sometimes I do like high energy songs that just come right in. And so sometimes I will create a day where I just jump out of bed and whatnot. But other days I like to just
Ease on
start
in.
with some soothing stuff or
Yeah.
like have some gentle elements come in.
That's
and then
better. That's a
create
better
the
way because
kind
you've
of,
got more control. You got more
right.
control in that. Later on, when you're really, really rocking and rolling with this, you can jump in at any velocity that you want to.
Nice. So my question is basically I've been into this work learning about it for a while now, and I'm pretty averse to hard work.
Well, we understand why. There's so much resistance in effort. There's no resistance in flow. And a lot of work gets done with flow. When there's leverage involved and universal sources and energy flowing, then you can just be a happy pointer. But if you're doing the heavy lifting, it's hard to stay satisfied. So we think you're on the right track. And even though others think you're lazy, they don't know or matter.
Yeah, so here's where the rubber meets the road.
Oh, there's
And
resistance when that happens.
There is, but here's the thing.
But it's a good thing because that resistance when the rubber hits the road keeps you from flying off in the bushes. If the rubber wasn't meeting the road with a certain amount of resistance, you'd have no control of your vehicle. So it's learning to manage the resistance. It's a matter of managing to be in this world and in control. Yes? Yeah. And so?
So I know all these processes you've given us, and I read Ask and It Is Given, and I have the emotional guidance scale printed out on my wall. And thing is, it almost feels like trying to reach for that satisfaction or trying to find the feeling of relief. That process itself almost feels like hard work to me.
Well, let's talk about this because you're absolutely right. We're going to start with pointing out an important differentiation between the feeling of relief and the feeling of satisfaction. If you look back in your book, you'll notice that in those 22 processes at the back of that book, we indicated if you're feeling these emotions, this might be a good process to help you release some resistance and get some relief. Because if you're feeling really depressed or really vulnerable, then revenge is an improvement. There's relief in revenge. Wouldn't you rather be really, really angry than depressed? There's more leverage in that. You're moving up the emotional scale. But relief still holds enough resistance that just finding some relief, often if you're not steady in looking for more relief and more relief and more relief, you'll just sort of stall out in revenge, and you could stay there a long time. You know people like that. Or stall out in anger, and you know people like that. So focus with us for just a moment and feel the difference between relief, which no doubt is an improved emotion, and satisfaction, which is so different in feeling. But we want you to understand it conceptually. In relief, there's still resistance, so your control is harder. In satisfaction, there's no resistance, and so law of attraction will do the heavy lifting. In relief, you still got to focus. In satisfaction, your inner being will do the heavy lifting. Can you feel the difference? It's subtle, but it's so important to understand. Helpful?
Yes. Sometimes whatever happens, circumstance come around, or I'm possibly just too conditional with how I respond to life, but sometimes I end up in these lower vibrations, and I want to get out of there.
That's the reason that we wrote that book, because for most of you, when you are consciously aware, when you find yourself in one of those lower vibrations that doesn't feel so good, you usually want to do something about it now. You don't want to go get a good night's sleep in the middle of your workday. You don't want to go sleep and therefore stop the momentum. And in many cases, you don't even want to meditate and quiet your mind and stop resistance and allow your vibration to rise. And it's because most of you are rather action oriented, and you feel that there's a certain amount of satisfaction in just sort of making your way up the emotional scale. These days, and it was in that book too, but these days we're emphasizing it in a stronger way. We're much more advocating that you get out ahead of it and create an atmosphere that keeps you from having to do the heavy lifting than find yourself in a situation where you have to do the heavy lifting, which is probably going to lead you to exhaustion and self-examination and self-degradation. In other words, this is harder than it's supposed to be. What am I doing wrong? It really is easier to just give yourself a break, go with the flow with whatever you got going on, and then get another easier run at it the next day. And as you begin playing this game, you'll all acknowledge this. As you sit in this room or some room and you listen to us or someone like us, and we are very confident about what we are saying, maybe even influential about it, and we might be able to sweep you up in the enthusiasm of what we know about the laws of the universe and about who you are and about your relationship with who you are, and it all sounds really good until you consciously acknowledge where you are in terms of your vibration and deliberately do something about it, like meditate and allow your vibration to rise, and then acknowledge that you're in the receiving mode and under the influence, and in the refreshing mode and under the influence, and receive an impulse or a thought that just sounds so good to you, and you follow it, and then you see the immediate payoff from it. Until you have actually been in your own driver's seat and had these experiences, these are just opinions from somebody else again. Just another bunch of opinions. One thing we'll say about our opinions, there's not a shred of contradiction in any of them. You won't find any holes or speed bumps because they are law-based. But we get that it's not easy to be in a physical world where you're being observed by a lot of people who have opinions about you, people who are offering their vibrational or nonverbal or maybe even verbal opinions. It's not the easiest thing in the world to keep yourself focused, and it is a nice thing that you get to start over as many times in a day as you want to through meditation or change of subject, or at least once a day. But if you can just take away from this conversation that your best work is in creating an atmosphere that hooks you up. It's like you don't want to vacuum your living room with a vacuum that's not plugged in. And you can go through all the motions and you can make marks all over the thing, but if it's not plugged in, it's not satisfying. We want to hear more from you, because we're not trying to talk you away from a position, because we're talking about the same thing. But we want to dialogue with you if you have something.
Well, I was just inspired to this idea. So I understand conceptually that when I ask for something, there's 100 different ways immediately around me that I could get to that.
Yeah.
And it's more of an intellectual thing. And I have experienced a few times where I go into those.
We've just got to jump in here really quick. Can you hold your place?
Yeah, sure.
So there are always a lot of choices. Think about this. If your intention has become, and you're pretty steady at it, which one's the most satisfying, then that means the guidance that you will feel, the impulses that you will feel, will give you the most satisfaction. Sometimes, depending on circumstances, a direct route would be more satisfying. Sometimes a meandering route with lots of beautiful interfaces with lots of beautiful things is more satisfying. And nobody else can decide for you what route, and it won't be the same route every time for you even. But your inner being knows, because we so want you to know this. We want you to know this. Your inner being knows for sure in every moment what you want, what's in the vortex, and where you stand right now, this red hot minute, in relationship to it, and knows the most satisfying route for you. So your inner being never chooses the quickest route, the most productive route, the most efficient route. Your inner being never chooses the most popular route. Your inner being doesn't have an opinion outside of what you've put there that is the most righteous route. Your inner being is leading you to your most satisfied route. And if you're reaching for satisfaction, then you're tuned into what that is. And sometimes you'll hear yourself thinking or saying to others, you know, I meant to go that way, but I sort of accidentally went that way, and then I met up with this, and wow, under the influence. So now, can you bring us back to where you were before we diverted you?
So like, let's say there's something that I get inspired, like, oh, that'd be awesome to have that, right? And I've heard you when you say there's 100 different avenues towards that, or it's feeling counterpart, right?
So now hear us now. 100 different avenues in varying degrees of satisfaction. 100 different routes in varying degrees of satisfaction. What do you choose? Most satisfying, please. But I don't know what it is. We do.
Cool. All right, thank you.